She was once the most beloved actress among Chinese people. She was the richest Chinese actress listed by Forbes. She was known as the female version of Warren Buffett. Within 4 months, she achieved a 144% return on investment. But now she reportedly cannot even come up with small sums of more than 8,000 yuan or more than 5,000 yuan. She has fallen to the point of being forcibly executed by the court. Before we dive into today's story, dear friends, we would truly appreciate your support. Because some of our videos speak about justice and expose the darker side of China, our channel has lost YouTube recommendations for a long time. That is why every like, every comment, and every share means so much to us. Please leave a comment below and let us know where you are watching this video from. Your support helps this channel continue, and it reminds us that we are not alone in speaking the truth. Thank you for being here with us. On New Year's Eve, she secretly appeared in a live stream room, seemingly trying to make a comeback. But less than 10 minutes later, the live stream was cut off. Even state media quickly stepped in and publicly criticized her by name. This person is Zhao Wei, the little swallow. How did she end up where she is today? Today, we will spend 20 minutes without rambling, only solid information, to look at this heartbreaking rise and fall of her life all at once. On April 30th, Chen Kun and Huang Xiaoming posted a group photo on Weibo. It was a reunion photo marking the 30th anniversary of the 1996 acting class of the Beijing Film Academy's performance department. The photo quickly swept across the entire internet. What everyone paid the most attention to was not the gathering of stars in the photo, but Zhao Wei, who was sitting next to the class teacher on the left with a head of red hair. This was almost the first time since she was blocked across the entire internet, in August 2021, that she appeared in public in such a normal manner. Just a little more than 1 month before this class reunion photo went viral, on March 9th, the Dongqing District People's Court of Beijing issued a ruling. The Wuhu Dongrunfa investment company in Zhao Wei's hands, which was an investment company jointly owned by her and her older brother Zhao Jian, had 90% of the equity she held worth 9 million yuan, all frozen. The freezing period was 3 years until 2029. Exactly 1 week after this ruling came down, it was her 50th birthday. She updated a 9-photo grid on social media. There was no glamorous makeup, no luxurious clothing. She was just sitting barefaced by the street drinking coffee barefoot on the beach. One photo in the middle showed sunlight passing through dark clouds and shining on the sea. The caption said, "Keep an ordinary heart. Everything will pass." Before this, she had already accumulated 18.5 million yuan in equity that had been locked by the court. Starting from April 2021, when 1.9 million yuan of equity under her name in Tibet Longwei Media was frozen all the way to the 9 million yuan frozen in March this year. These were not new cases. The root of the problem came from a trust financing guarantee of 1.8 billion yuan in 2017. At that time, Zhao Wei provided a joint liability guarantee for a company controlled by the sister of her ex-husband, Huang Yulong. Later, that company defaulted. Minsheng Trust came back to collect the debt and traced it to her. Even more ironic was something that happened in 2024. This person who once stirred up storms in the capital market was actually forcibly executed by the court because of debts of more than 8,000 yuan and more than 5,000 yuan. In the past, these few thousand yuan might not even have been enough to buy her keychain. Now they became the last little pieces of money that tore apart her final dignity. She reportedly could not even come up with 10,000 yuan. Why did it become like this? All of this has to begin with the man she married. When many people tell Zhao Wei's story, they start from My Fair Princess. But the real starting point of the Capital Road behind her was not the little swallow of 1998, but an introduction in 2008. At the beginning of 2008, the so-called Qigong master Wang Lin, who later became known as a major fraudster and was arrested, introduced Zhao Wei to a man. His name was Huang Yulong. In December of the same year, the two registered their marriage in Shenzhen and Singapore. Before Huang Yulong married Zhao Wei, there was very little public information about him. The little background information dug up by the media was this: he was born in 1976 in Shaodong, Hunan. His family were farmers. From 2000 to 2002, he worked at a company in Shenzhen called Zhongxing Kangyi Entertainment. In 2002, he became the general manager of Shenzhen Dongrunda Industrial. In 2005, his second elder sister Huang took over the New Leaf Hot Spring Resort Hotel in Zhengqing, Guangdong, and wrote him down as the founder of the Golden Leaf Hotel. Up to this point, he was still only a Guangdong businessman, whose name you could not really remember. But not long after the 2017 case broke, Xiaokadao under People's Daily once said something. Huang Yulong was the driver of Xu Zongheng, the former mayor of Shenzhen, before his downfall. However, later, Dongshen County under China Business Journal conducted a series of investigations and changed the wording. It clearly said that Huang Yulong was not Xu Zongheng's driver, but implied that his rise was related to former Shenzhen Party Secretary Huang Liman. Who was Huang Liman? She was one of Jiang Zemin's 4 great mistresses. No matter which relationship it was, there was one thing in common: Huang Yulong's rise did not depend on doing business, but depended on people. When Zhao Wei married him in 2008, according to Apple Daily, his net worth at that time had already reached 400 million Hong Kong dollars. In the next 10 years, this number would increase by dozens of times, because the next key figure was about to appear. After Zhao Wei got married, she appeared on screen less often, but appeared at dinner gatherings more often. She and Huang Yulong began entering a circle. The core figure of this circle was Jack Ma. From the scenes described in public records, you can feel that the relationship between these two families was extraordinary. When Jack Ma invited Bill Gates to dinner, Huang Yulong accompanied him. In June 2014, at the press conference where Evergrande and Alibaba announced a strategic cooperation, Huang Yulong appeared to support Jack Ma. On June 8, 2014, Jack Ma appeared at the 80th birthday banquet of Zhao Wei's father-in-law. Zhao Wei once posted photos on Weibo of herself, writing calligraphy and painting together with Jack Ma. She also quoted Jack Ma's words, "Playing through life, enjoying oneself." Zhao Wei herself was also one of the authors of a book about Jack Ma. When friends reach this level, cooperation is naturally unavoidable. December 20th, 2014 was the most important day in Zhao Wei's capital career. She and Huang Yulong, through an overseas company wholly owned by Huang Yulong called Gold Ocean Media, took out 3.1 billion Hong Kong dollars in cash in one move. At an average price of 1.6 Hong Kong dollars per share, they bought 1.93 billion shares of Alibaba Pictures, took 9.18% of the shares, and became the second largest shareholder of Alibaba Pictures, second only to Alibaba. At that time, the biggest question from the Hong Kong media was, where did the 3.1 billion Hong Kong dollars in cash come from Zhao Wei? And Huang Yulong did not answer. 4 months later, Alibaba Pictures surged. The Zhao Wei couple reduced their holdings of 256 million shares over 2 days at a price of 3.9 Hong Kong dollars per share, cashing out about 1 billion Hong Kong dollars. In 4 months, the return rate was as high as 144%. By 2015, Forbes directly wrote Zhao Wei as China's richest actress, praising her for having a sharp investment mind. The hat of female Warren Buffett was put on her at that time. Over the following year or so, she made a second reduction in Alibaba Pictures. In October 2016, she cashed out 1.25 billion Hong Kong dollars in one move. Through one entry and 2 exits, according to statistics on Alibaba Pictures alone, she cashed out at least more than 2.3 billion Hong Kong dollars. But this was not all. In 2011, Zhao Wei invested 776,400 yuan in talent television and film. In 2015, after the company went public, the market value of her shares rose to 120 million yuan. The return over 4 years exceeded 150 times. In 2015, China Creative Holdings listed in Hong Kong. Zhao Wei's total investment was 21.06 million Hong Kong dollars. On the day of listing, it soared by 925%. In one day, she earned 190 million Hong Kong dollars. There was also YTO Express's backdoor listing. One of the strategic shareholders was Yunfeng Xinchuan, and Zhao Wei was a natural person shareholder of Yunfeng Xinchuan. In this way, in less than 2 short years, by 2016, Zhao Wei had already appeared on the Hurun Global Rich list. With a net worth of 6.6 billion yuan, she ranked 1,964th, becoming the only celebrity from the entertainment industry on the list. Up to this point, it looked like an inspirational story of a celebrity transforming into an investment genius. But the problem is, in this entire script, there was not a single thing that ordinary people could copy. So how did Zhao Wei do it? Let us leave the answer here for now. Friends, please continue watching. As 2016 was about to end, Zhao Wei's ambition grew even bigger. She was no longer satisfied with being a shareholder and making profits. She wanted to control a listed company herself. This was the later famous Wanja culture case. On November 2nd of that year, Tibet Longwei Media was established. Its registered capital was 2 million yuan. The legal representative was Zhao Wei. Please note this was 2 million, not 20 billion. This company had just been established. It had no performance record, no paid-in capital. Total assets, net assets, operating revenue, and net profit were all zero. There is a term for this in the capital market, a shell company. A little more than 1 month after the company was established, it issued an announcement. It planned to spend 3.06 billion yuan to acquire 29.135% of the equity of Zhejiang Wanjia Culture Company Limited and obtain controlling rights. At that time, Wanjia Culture's market value was about 10 billion yuan. How could a newly established small company come up with this 3.06 billion yuan? The announcement wrote it very clearly. Zhao Wei would contribute 60 million yuan herself, borrow 1.5 billion yuan from a third party, and then seek stock pledge financing from financial institutions to raise 1.4999 billion yuan. Converted into leverage, this means Zhao Wei used 60 million yuan to pry up 3.0 billion yuan, a leverage ratio of 51 times. This was the highest leverage record for acquiring a listed company in China's capital market. Even Wall Street investment banks during the 2008 U.S. financial crisis did not dare play this big. What was even more interesting was in the details of the borrowing. The 1.5 billion yuan in third-party borrowing was borrowed from a company called Tibet Yinbixin. The annualized interest rate was 10%. Such a large sum of money was lent to a shell company that had just been established and had registered capital of only 2 million yuan, without requiring Zhao Wei herself to provide any guarantee. Could an ordinary person possibly do this? Industry insiders analyzed that this could not possibly be a normal loan. There must have been an arrangement for equity returns behind it. How should this be understood? And what kind of return arrangement was it? Friends, please pay attention. We will talk about this question later. And who was behind Tibet Yinbixin, the company that lent the money? We will also leave this as foreshadowing because this is one of the most critical knots in the entire story. Once the announcement came out, Wanjia Culture's stock price immediately took off, rising from 18 yuan all the way to 25 yuan, an increase of 33%. When retail investors saw the 2 words Zhao Wei, they rushed in to buy. But the deal collapsed. In January 2017, the bank suddenly said it would not approve the loan. Because the financing was not in place, the financing collapsed. Then Longwei Media changed the previously planned acquisition of 29% to 5%. But even that still did not work. In the end, they simply did not proceed with the acquisition at all. Moreover, both sides agreed not to pursue liability for breach of contract. Once you hear this, there is clearly a lot of story inside. The stock price then went downward all the way. At its peak, the decline once approached 90%. And the retail investors who believed the announcement and rushed in lost almost everything in less than 1 month. At that time, there was also a very popular article called "Controlled the Zhao Wei's Who Cut the Leaks." So how did such an ambitious deal collapse so suddenly? Because during the same period, Another incident happened. On January 27, 2017, Chinese New Year's Eve at the Four Seasons Hotel in Hong Kong, a man whose name in the Chinese mainland capital world was extremely famous, but who had long kept a low profile and hidden at the Four Seasons Hotel, was pushed out of the hotel in a wheelchair and brought back to the mainland. He was Xiao Jianhua. He was from Shandong. At the age of 15, he was admitted to Peking University's law department. At the age of 27, he became China's youngest general manager of a listed company. From then on, he single-handedly built China's most mysterious financial empire. The Tomorrow Group controlled or held shares in dozens of listed companies. The Hurun Rich list ranked him 32nd, but the outside world estimated that his real net worth was at least at the level of hundreds of billions. So how did Xiao Jianhua being taken back to mainland China become connected to Zhao Wei? The Tibet Yinbixian that lent Zhao Wei 1.5 billion yuan, when traced layer by layer online, was an associated company of the Tomorrow Group. The financial advisor hired by Zhao Wei for the Wanja culture acquisition was also a company under the Tomorrow Group. After Xiao Jianhua was taken away on January 27th, Zhao Wei's 3.0 billion yuan acquisition case collapsed. The bank did not approve the loan, and the financing failed. In November of that year, the Zhejiang Securities Regulatory Bureau formally issued penalties. Zhao Wei and Huang Yulong were each fined 300,000 yuan and banned from entering the securities market for 5 years. At that time, many analysts looked at this timeline and concluded that the punishment of Zhao Wei and her husband was a signal that the authorities were moving against the Tomorrow Group. But if the story only went this far, then it would merely be a script in which Zhao Wei was implicated by the Tomorrow Group's trouble. In July 2024, the New York Times and The Wire China published an investigative report. They reviewed more than 2,000 confidential internal documents from Tomorrow Group, and the authenticity of this information was confirmed by 2 former employees of Tomorrow Group. What this report revealed was another version of the script. First, where did the 3.1 billion Hong Kong dollars that Zhao Wei and her husband invested in Alibaba Pictures in 2014 come from? It was not Zhao Wei's own money. 60% of it came from Xiao Jianhua's company, that is Tomorrow Group. The remaining 40% was privately lent by Xiao Jianhua to Huang Yulong at an interest rate of 8%, with $125 million invested into it. At that time, Huang Yulong also borrowed $75 million from Credit Suisse. In the end, this formed the more than 3 billion yuan deal. Moreover, although all this money was invested in Huang Yulong's name, the people handling the payments and bank dealings were all teams from Xiao Jianhua's Tomorrow Group. In 2015, after Alibaba Pictures' stock price surged, Huang Yulong cashed out $75 million. Xiao Jianhua's company also received almost the same amount of profit at that time. As for Yunfeng Financial Jack Ma's securities company, which was then called Reorient Group, Xiao Jianhua controlled about 1/3 of its shares through 4 offshore companies, plus a 5th company held by Huang Yulong. This was even more than Jack Ma's own shareholding. When Ant Group was preparing to list in 2020, the prospectus showed that Zhao Wei's mother, Wei Qiying, a retired elementary school music teacher, was a partner of Yunfeng Fund. She held about 7.3 million shares of Ant, with a market value of 500 million yuan. And one of Xiao Jianhua's employees was the largest single investor in this fund. In other words, Zhao Wei and Huang Yulong were agents for Xiao Jianhua's investment in Jack Ma's companies. Xiao Jianhua was also the white glove of the highest-ranking powerful families in the Chinese Communist Party. In 2014, Xiao Jianhua's spokesperson personally confirmed to the New York Times that Xi Jinping's elder sister and brother-in-law had sold 50% of a Beijing investment company. The buyer at that time was Xiao Jianhua's Tomorrow Group. It did not stop there. Within Jiang's factional system, Xiao Jianhua had very close ties with the families of Zheng Qinghong and Liu Yunshan. So this line is the highest power families of the Chinese Communist Party through their white glove Xiao Jianhua, then through the white glove of the white glove Huang Yulong and Zhao Wei, used an unprecedented and perhaps unrepeatable level of ultra-high leverage to buy into Jack Ma's companies. After the stock market value surged, they quickly sold out, completed returns of hundreds of times, and finally exited. The money came out from places that could not see the light when around through the public face of a celebrity, was washed clean through Alibaba and Ant, and after listing the profits were divided proportionally. This is the truth behind Zhao Wei's story as the female version of Warren Buffett. It was not a story of an actress relying on vision to make investments. It was a story of the highest power families in the Chinese Communist Party laundering money, buying shares under borrowed names, and finally dividing the spoils. The celebrity was only the publicity link in the middle, because Zhao Wei was famous. When she appeared in an announcement, retail investors would believe it. Yuan, who once served as Hu Chunhua's legal advisor, once said something. He said that in the political circle of the CCP's top level, the greatest reward in the game is I will bring you in to play. The process of your participation is also the process of acting as my white glove. Now let us pull the camera back to 2021. On the night of August 26 that year, without any official announcement, all of the work starring Zhao Wei, including My Fair Princess Romance and The Rain Moment in Peking, and Tiger Mom were removed from major video platforms all at once. Her name was deleted from cast lists. Her Weibo Super topic was closed. Unreleased dramas quickly changed actors. Artists who had a good relationship with her deleted Weibo posts overnight and cut ties. This level of blocking was unprecedented in China's entertainment industry. And the strangest thing was no one told everyone why. If it was because of being unpatriotic, being pro-Japan, or tax evasion according to the CCP's usual practice, whether it was the radio and television authorities or the tax bureau, they would immediately issue a notice and define the crime. But this time there was nothing at all. The mystery itself was the answer. Let us put together what happened during that period. In April 2021, Huang Yulong was wanted by the CCP through Interpol and arrested in France. Court records showed that the CCP wanted him to return to China to testify in the corruption case of former Vice Minister of Public Security, Sun Lijun. At that time, CCP officials spoke with him and said, "If you return and cooperate in the investigation of a certain senior political figure, we can withdraw the warrant against you." They also said, "I have chatted with your wife." In July 2021, a French court rejected the extradition request against Huang Yulong. On July 23, 2021, Huang Yulong and Zhao Wei secretly divorced. 1 month later, Hangzhou Party Secretary Zhou Jiangyong fell from power, and Zhejiang officialdom experienced a major earthquake. One of the charges against Zhou Jiangyong at the time was that on the eve of Ant Group's listing, he suddenly bought 400 million yuan worth of shares. Does this not feel somewhat familiar to what we mentioned earlier about Zhao Wei suddenly buying, and 3 days later, Zhao Wei was blocked across the entire internet? From Xiaojianhua being taken away in 2017, to Ant's listing being halted in October 2020, then to Huang Yulong being arrested in France in April 2021, his secret divorce from Zhao Wei in July, the earthquake in Zhejiang, officialdom in August, and Zhao Wei being blocked across the entire internet at the end of August. These were not a series of isolated events. They were the process of a capital empire being cut apart one knife at a time. And Zhao Wei was the most beautiful, most harmless-looking, and most recognizable face standing in front of this empire. In the more than 4 years after the ban, Zhao Wei tried several times to test the waters for a comeback. For example, on December 4th, 2024, after Qiong Yao passed away, she rarely posted a message of mourning. 2 days later, she suddenly officially announced on Weibo that she and Huang Yulong had already ended their marriage relationship long ago. This timing was extremely subtle. Before that, there had just been reports that Huang Yulong was being pursued for a huge debt of 750 million yuan. The fact that she publicly talked about divorce at that time was widely seen by the outside world as an attempt to cut off the debt and pave the way for a comeback. At the end of the following year, 2025, she suddenly parachuted into a female live streamer's live stream room. For the first time, she showed her full face completely. Her makeup was exquisite. Her styling was carefully done. It was clearly prepared with great care. She warmly hugged the female live streamer. The atmosphere was intense. Fans rushed in crazily and kept sending gifts. In the early hours of New Year's Eve 2026, she once again parachuted in, appearing in the live stream room of her own wine brand. After she appeared, sales in the live stream room surged instantly. But it only lasted for 10 minutes. The live stream room was cut off. Afterward, she sent a voice message in a fan group. According to people who heard it, her voice was hoarse and extremely dejected. She said that in the future, she would no longer be able to connect online like this. Immediately afterward, on January 19th, Xinhua News Agency published a commentary article saying that artists with serious violations who attempt illegal comebacks should have no market and no traffic. The article named some artists who tried to use online platforms to sneak back onto the internet. This was clearly pointing at Zhao Wei. At this point in the story, the overall shape has already emerged. Zhao Wei was never the one playing chess. She was not the real funder of the 3.0 billion Hong Kong dollar Alibaba Pictures transaction. The money came from Xiao Jianhua. She was also not the largest shadow shareholder of Yulong Financial. That position belonged to Xiao Jianhua. She was also not the real designer of the Wanja culture acquisition case. The people lending the money and acting as financial advisors were all from the Tomorrow Group. Her mother was also not the real partner of Yulong Fund. The real person sitting behind it was an employee of Xiao Jianhua. And Xiao Jianhua himself was not at the very top of the entire ecological chain either. His Tomorrow Group once took over assets from Xi Jinping's elder sister and brother-in-law, and was deeply bound to Zheng Qinghong and Liu Yunshan in Zhang's factional system. In other words, at the celebrity level, Zhao Wei was Huang Yulong's white glove. Huang Yulong was Xiao Jianhua's white glove. Xiao Jianhua was the white glove of those red families at the very top of the Chinese Communist Party, where power is most concentrated. It is just a pity that Zhao Wei acted out all kinds of lives and dramas, but outside the dramas, she also failed to become the author of her own life. In this dangerous game of politics and wealth, she probably never imagined that after being brought along to play, she would end up in such a situation. Dear friends, we would truly appreciate your support. Because some of our videos speak about justice and expose the darker side of China, our channel has lost YouTube recommendations for a long time. That is why every like, every comment, and every share means so much to us. Please leave a comment below and let us know where you are watching this video from. Your support helps this channel continue, and it reminds us that we are not alone in speaking the truth. Thank you for being here with us.